Just remembering the time that white women were so lazy they couldn't be fucked to do their own housework. So instead of them letting black women have the same luxury of being able to stay home and care for our families as we hadn't been able to do for at least a couple hundred, 300, 400 years before this point, they made laws. Oh, I'm sorry. They had their men make laws and legislation to force us to work because, again, their men were also too insecure to contend with the idea that black men would ever pull in the same amount of money as them or be just as valued for the labor that they were contributing to the workforce. That's right. As with most instances, when left to our own devices, black people actually found ways to thrive, and we didn't have to be forced into servitude in order to desire to work. Many black men were entering the military for the means of trying to integrate into society, try to contribute back to this country, even though the country had given nothing to them, trying to make money to care for their families and maybe gain a foothold in the world after being born a generation outside of forced servitude, and some of them even experienced slavery firsthand. They didn't have to be forced. They actually wanted to. They signed up for the military, were trying to fight for their country and provide for their wives and children back home. And because the government was actually allowing this and, giving them a little bit of money, because they were giving them an allowance that was going back home to their wives, the black women back home now had enough money to be able to quit these harsh domestic roles in other women's homes and take care of our own families and start building our own home. Well, the disgruntled Wahite people couldn't have that because that would mean leveling the playing field. That would mean that black folks would have a fighting chance to actually start to gain some leverage in society and, start rebuilding or building for the first time our own communities and, being self-sufficient. Which looked a little bit too much like equality to them. That was a little too much humanity for these beasts of burden. So if you see here, basically it says, and I gotta get close, y'all, because y'all know I can't see. But basically it says, Negro women to be put to work, a city ordinance will be passed requiring them to be regularly employed. That is because since these women were now getting allowances from their husbands' hard work and labor in the military, they were now able to focus on themselves and focus on their own family. So for the first time, black women had the luxury of choice and being able to choose to do for themselves. And they did not, obviously, want to spend 16 plus hours in some other motherfucker's house taking care of them. They were choosing to stay home and take care of their own homes. So they had the audacity, black women had the audacity for the first time in forever to actually say, no thank you, I actually don't want to work for a half a penny every 24 hours. I'm gonna stay home and take care of myself and my kids with the money my man is making. So not only were these women exercising autonomy for the first time in ever, but they were actually able to do what the white women were doing. And not only that, white people had to do their own work for the first time. So what did these Wahite women do? These Wahite men and women, but mostly the women do? They complained so much that they forced the government to force black women to get back in their houses, their homes that they should have been caring for, and cook and clean. And it's crazy because if history had taught them anything, it is that black women in proximity to white men means that those white men are going to take advantage of those black women. So you were literally imagine being so lazy that you would rather, I'm sorry, I had to gather my thoughts because this is incomprehensible to me, but I also have to remember that a lot of these women didn't even like their own husbands, so I guess they figure the less I have to do for him, the better. But imagine being so lazy that not only are you not willing to clean and care for your own house and children, you are willing to allow your husband to cheat so you can have the luxury of continuing to not care for your own household. Because let's keep it 100%. Most of the time, the black women that were entering these households as domestic workers were also mistresses. Or if they weren't mistresses, they were being assaulted and essayed on a regular basis. Because these lustful monsters were preying not only on their labor, but on the proximity to their subservient bodies and felt like they were owed access to these black women. So yes, more often than not, these husbands, fathers, brothers, uncles, etc., that y'all were forcing black women in proximity to, were also trying to screw us. Because you don't want to do your own housework, bitch. Like, what?